Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're back with another State of the Faction video as I was writing up some notes on the Greenskins and I felt rather inspired. You see, on the tabletop and in lore, the Greenskins are one of the most diverse factions in Warhammer Fantasy, having a lot of different types of units, mostly because the Greenskins are divided into their own different subculture, and that means that you could have loads of different playstyles. You could go for Night Goblin, you could go for Forest Goblin in earlier editions, not the later ones, Normal Goblin, Mixed Goblins, Orcs, Black Orcs, Savage Orcs, hell, you could mix them all up to just make some very impressive war. It was because the Greenskins were so diverse when Total War Warhammer was first announced and we got the first notice on what the races would be playable at the beginning, I was very excited to play as the Greenskins because, yeah, Greenskins. Now at the start, yes, it wasn't great, and slowly but surely we did start to get some updates to them. We got some DLC, we got some FLC too, which is really nice. And over the years, yeah, the Greenskins have gotten better. Originally in Warhammer 1 they were fine, but as the map got bigger and as stuff just started becoming more complicated in a sense, there needed to be an update. The rework came into effect and was pretty good, but I feel like a bit more needs to be done just to kind of finish them off. So we currently have 5 legendary lords and there are some unique playstyles attached to them. My personal favorite is Warzag because one thing I've always mentioned is I've always wanted a savage orc army on the tabletop, mainly because memes. It's not going to win a lot of games, but memery is always kind of fun. And I really enjoy playing as the Greenskins ever since their rework that came alongside the Warden and the Paunch DLC, because that really made the Greenskins, you know, not a slog to play. Originally the Greenskins were at a point where, yeah, they were a horde faction in a sense, without being a horde. You had to constantly keep fighting because the fightiness mechanic was just absolutely brutal, and yes, you want to keep fighting as the Greenskins anyway, but it felt like it was so forced, you didn't really have a time to build up your economy, build up your orcs, get some better units, you just had to go straight in. It was just boring, mostly. But yeah, like I said, the rework fixed a lot of problems, and now the Greenskins are one of those races where I can have a good casual play and have a lot of fun. They are by no means done, and I'll talk about that later on in this video, but it's a massive step in the right direction. This is again when I compare different types of reworks. If you look at the vampire counts or the dwarves, the vampire counts have had 1 rework, the dwarves have had 2 reworks, and they're just not as good as the Greenskins. This is because Greenskins got a DLC attached to it, and that means that a lot of attention went to that faction. It's not as good as, say for example, the rework that the Beastmen got or the Wood Elves got, but for the Greenskins, I think this was just what it was needed. It didn't need to be so out there, just enough to give a bit of a fresh coat of paint more than anything else. In fact, from their rework, there's only 2 things that I would actually change. First up, for Warzag, all the benefits on the Lord effects for Savage Orcs should be reduced, but moved to faction-wide, not just for Warzag, because it's a Savage Orc faction, and you want to be able to use Savage Orcs. It's kind of disappointing that these really cool units, right, are so expensive that you're basically just getting it with Warzag and that's it. We'll talk about the Lords missing and all that type of stuff later, but I feel like if you're going to play Warzag, you're going to want to theme and have a lot of Savage Orcs. You don't want Goblins, you don't want Black Orcs and stuff, you just want a lot of Savage Orcs, or at least I do. And Gore should have had a unique mechanic implemented for him, or at the very least, something more copy-pasted from someone else, just to kind of have a reason to play Gore as he's the biggest and the best, he's constantly proving himself. The way I thought of it is maybe in the style of the Norscan monster hunts, where it would just be go here and crump a general of the Empire, a general of the High Elves, a general of the Dark Elves, the Dwarfs, in the future obviously Chaos Dwarfs because it makes a lot of sense. You wouldn't get anything like a unit to have, like a Regiment of Renown, but rather you'd get, you know, the fame, experience boost, and possibly, you know, a lot of money because it kind of makes sense. You'd have to be traveling around a lot. But it makes sense. This is something that Gore does a lot in lore. He's always traveling just to pretty much just beat down anything there. And given that he is the biggest and the best, he should have had something a bit more unique. Everyone has something, you know, Skarsnik has access to the whole Carrack 8 Peaks thing, and he's generally got a lot of his mechanics and a lot of Greenskin mechanics are just been embedded into the Lord effects. but something special for Grimgore would have been cool. And the good thing about this is if those are my only 2 complaints regarding the rework, that means the rework was very, very fun. And yeah, I've played a lot of Greenskin campaigns since the Immortal Empires has dropped, and I've had some fun. I've honestly been enjoying myself, and that's a big thing. But now we have to look towards the future because, yeah, the Greenskins are very likely to get more DLC. They've already got 5 Legendary Lords. A few more would be lovely. And in all honesty, again, I've said this for like the Beastmen, but 1 DLC should kind of fix up the Greenskins if the Greenskins get a Champions of Chaos style DLC in the very same format of Champions of Chaos. This would be 4 Legendary Lords, or hell 3, and a bunch of units, because the majority of the thing that is actually missing from the Greenskins is mostly just units. So look at this roster. The roster's absolutely massive, isn't it? It's big. But this is actually extremely tiny when it comes to the Greenskins itself. So there needs to be a lot more variance. If you look at basically, say, the Orc Boys, which are just sword and shield right now, we're missing additional hand weapon variants, we're missing spear variants. We're missing without the shield, but the shield doesn't really matter too much. Same thing with, like, Goblins. We're missing the sword and board. We're missing a lot of stuff, which, yes, might not be the most important thing to people, but if you want to have a really big mega DLC, if you want to have everything, if you want to roleplay, this is what's needed. Yes, mods do that, but in an official sense is always usually best, right? I'd say if we ended up getting all the missing variants that we did have in the form of like a Champions of Chaos style DLC, we'd be getting more. We'd be getting a lot more than we currently have in vanilla. So say double, maybe triple, and it's mostly just infantry, some archers, and a few mounted variants. But I feel like having the option is better to have than not need. Look at the Warriors of Chaos roster, for example, which if you play as an Undivided Lord, you have so many units. And that's great. That's honestly so cool because this is what we want to see by the end of the series, or at least that's what I want to see, that I can go and play a Savage Orc playthrough and only use Savage Orcs if I so wish, or have only Savage Orc Lords, which we'll talk about later, with Savage Orcs, Orc war bosses with normal orcs, or a mix, because that's usually how you kind of feel with them on the tabletop. It's about the immersion, and the immersion is needed with extra troops. Not always, but it does help. I know that I'm enjoying the Chaos Warriors a lot more having access to marked warriors, and I would have a lot more fun with the orcs and goblins if I had all the different types of orcs and goblins. It's the same thing with the Lord and Hero choices. It's a bit disappointing to see it this way, as I've got an Orc War Boss, but if I want to play as a Savage Orc army, I want a Savage Orc War Boss, for theme's sake, right? Or having, I don't know, a Night Goblin Shaman Lord, even though we have a Goblin Great Shaman, but it's just for theme, and all this stuff is focused around reskins. Hell, one thing that kind of irks me a little bit is that we don't have an Orc Great Shaman Lord. You know, we have access to the lore of magic in a hero form, but it would be nice to have it in a lord form too, because I used to field orc armies with the lore as a main thing. I know some people do prefer the lore of the big war rather than the little war, but it's the case of just having the option. The option is always good, even if it's not always used and it's not used by the majority of players. I know some players who basically don't play Warriors of Chaos, but they're quite happy that everyone's getting what they actually really want to get, and it really gives them hopeful stuff for their faction in the future. We have to think about it this way. Once some factions are getting near enough completion, that means the other ones will start to get more attention too. At least we hope so if Creative Assembly keep to the stronger DLC cadence that they said that they were going to do. But yeah, just imagine being able to field an army, already having a theme in mind, and having the perfect Lord option for that already. It's just kind of fun. I know a lot of people just focus on meta, so you know, you go for a spellcaster because spellcasters are generally better, but theming is cool, especially for a sandbox game. This is a big thing. Sandbox really does have that vibe of the tabletop. Not so much more. I'll tell you that the tabletop was a lot more complicated than this, but I'm not going to shut up about it until Creative Assembly actually give us what we want, or at least what I want. I'm hoping that you guys feel the same way. And yeah, let's move on. In terms of Legendary Lord options, we're actually in a very good spot. We've got 5, all kind of spread out in a lot of directions, and it's actually quite good. This means that if you decide to play as a Greenskin, you can have replayability because, you know, Gore is in, well, very much bordering the Darklands. We've got Azag closing up in the border to the Empire and Kislev whilst also fighting the Dwarves. Scarsnake is fighting the Dwarves directly but can move into the Badlands, can go up north, can go down south. You've got so many options there. Warzag smack in the middle of the Badlands, but it makes sense because it's Warzag. And Grom the Paunch is in Bretonnia, waiting to launch an invasion of Ulthuan, which, yeah, again, all very, very good choices. So when we start looking to missing characters, there's obviously Gorfang Rockgut, who does have a model, by the way. It's just very old. This is the one on screen. This would kind of serve as a generic type of Greenskin, because we don't really have a generic Greenskin Legendary Lord, because, well, you know, Gore doesn't count because it's Gore, right? It's just kind of different, and I kind of like the idea of it. Plus, you know, he can start in Blackcrag since that is his actual base of operations, and that's now been freeing up since Gore has been moved to the Darklands. Again, not really needed. This is a character which just would be nice, but isn't really that essential. Gorbad Ironclaw could be a cool character, mostly because he's cavalry focused, so you could have loads of boars, your army would focus around a lot of chariots too. I mean, the only reason I'm mentioning this character is because, yeah, he's got a cool model. Like, he has one of the best models for the Greenskins. I've always been a massive fan. And it would just be kind of interesting. I don't know, maybe they could have some interesting mechanics. Maybe make this one like a proper horde since he's constantly on the move. Well, not a proper horde, but, you know, something a little bit different, just stylized. Because we know now that hordes don't work, but new types of hordes do. And he's a cool character. The other ones are going to be a bit more interesting anyways. Snagler Grobspit could be introduced as a Forest Goblin Legendary Lord. That way we have one of the missing races, well, subcultures to the Greenskins, and it would just be kind of interesting. I would love if they were available in, like, say, the Empire, because that's where we know that they kind of go. The only problem is right now the Empire is a bit of a shit show, and, yeah, adding in another faction in there might just cause too many problems. You never know for the future if the Empire get, like, a nice rework prior to a potential Greenskin DLC, which I feel like the Empire should get it next after the Chaos Dwarves, because, you know, like Tamukan, Elsef, just kind of makes sense. But yeah, a Legendary Lord, Spider focused, obviously with Forest Goblin units on foot, with bows, poison weapons, all that type of stuff. It's just to add in a little bit of flavor. Now, you probably wouldn't want to play as a Forest Goblin army, but then you'd have the functionality to do so if you so wished, right? It's an interesting thing. I don't know, Forest Goblins were never that popular, but I feel like something like that could just be cool. And then finally, Gittilla the Hunter. By the way, Snagler and Gittilla don't have unique models. They were part of the period of Warhammer where you'd introduce rules but not new miniatures. But yeah, this is mainly because these types of DLC, I guess, would work well with 4. If it was just Freak, then Gorbad, Snagler, and Gorfang would be okay, but Gittilla would add another Goblin variant, which would be focused heavily on skirmishing, but fast skirmishing combat, right? Loads of wolves, and wolves. And I know that's not the most exciting stuff, but I know some people who do like skirmishing-based factions. I know a lot of people are going to be saying here, oh, what about the Hobgoblin Khan and stuff, but I believe that the Hobgoblins should be their own thing. They have their own faction, they're not really trusted by the other Greenskins. I know that's surprising, but yeah. And it just kind of makes sense. Go for a skirmishing-based faction where you would get kind of like the Hobgoblin feel, but with its own twist, and go from there. Maybe this one could actually be the Horde, to be honest, because Gittilla is always moving too. It's one of those weird things where sometimes Hordes make sense, but the Horde mechanic just isn't good. But yeah, these other characters, that's pretty much what's missing. I feel like the Greenskins are in a very good place. I love the Greenskins, I think they're really well done, and not much is really missing from them anyway. If we start looking at anything that's actually missing, obviously there's the Colossal Squig, there's the Squig Spitter, which is actually kind of cool. Snotlings, proper Snotlings, on foot, not on the pump wagon. You know, there's not really that much missing right now, barring just loads and loads of variants. But these are all kind of cool, and it would just be nice. Really, if we get a Champions of Chaos style DLC, we'd only probably get one. I think the Colossal Squig would probably be that one that I would like. Because I'm much more interested in, say, for example, unit variants, really. Yeah, I'm much more interested in unit variants. I know some people would think otherwise, but yeah. We know that if we get a Champions of Chaos style DLC, we're only going to get like one unique unit. That was kind of obvious there. It's a bit of a disappointment, really, but yeah, we just have to wait and see. But what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about the Greenskins in general? What do you think is actually the most needed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion, and yeah, I shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.